for people who don't know, getting a store on Bleecker Street is expensive. And that was your first store. So
Yeah.
how were you so confident that this was going to work in store?
I wasn't. And I think that's important to note too for any like budding entrepreneurs out there. Like sometimes you just try it and you are gonna hope against hope that it's gonna work. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it does, then great. And that's the whole game, right? Of building a business is like you're hedging constantly. You're trying to figure it out. You're constantly moving in whatever direction you feel is right in that moment, just because it's a little bit more right than this direction, right? But it doesn't mean that it's the clearest answer. I will say my husband joining the team, he came from, almost decade-long career in finance at Blackstone, really understands business at its core. And he came in and was always kind of my numbers guy on the side. But once he joined, he's the one who pushed me over that finish line of like, we can do this, let's give it a shot and see what happens. The other benefit was we did work at the time with Leap, who I'm sure you guys are familiar with Leap. And they got us that first store open. And so I will always credit them with that initial burst of confidence because they kind of took a little bit of the fear off the table. Over time we have found that we've figured out kind of our formula, and it's become a little bit easier in some cases to do our own stores. So we do have a little bit of a blended model right now, but they really did give us that initial confidence to just kind of go for it. And luckily it worked. And this was without the beating component, right? This was just pure product play. There was we just about a month ago turned over Bleecker to have a beating activation space because it's such a small footprint.
So there was no experience.
There was no experience at Bleecker.
Wow.
But
And
it
it still
proved
crushed.
itself. Yeah, it did. And it proved the model, and it gave us more confidence to go out and do our own stores. And we're like, is this just lightning in a bottle? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And luckily it hasn't been. And yeah, I think it's that, and it's also just every entrepreneur should have like a little bit of a delusional sense of confidence, Like I think we should all be a little bit crazy. I think we all are.
I got it tattooed.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wait, I kind of love that for my next one. Delusion. That's fire. Because it's true. Like that is what you need to have. Just this crazy sense of confidence, because if you don't believe in it, nobody else will.
Yep. Absolutely. 100% agreed. You need that leap of faith, and that's kind of what you did with that Bleecker Street store.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ron's not here today, but the question I think he would ask, more on the operation side, right? You have stores nationwide. How are you managing hiring? How are you managing, just like in general KPIs for each store?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. But it's also not at the same time, because once you find the formula, you really can just kind of replicate over and over and over again. Yeah. So, we have found actually that the model of going it your own and finding and employing the team yourself and having that direct communication line, for us, a brand that's all about community building and really welcoming people into what we call and consider to be a family. When you walk into our stores, you should feel like you're walking into like your living room and your sister's there and you guys are talking about what's going on in your life. And that's really the experience you have at most of our retail stores, if not all. Because of that importance, we really feel that into that fully integrated setup, if you will, is necessary, right? So employing the team on our own, yes, it comes with more headaches and more employees and more people you have to manage, but it also really helps us kind of steer the ship on what the end consumer experience is, and that's huge.
So you're actually going out there to each store, doing the hiring process?
We're not necessarily going out there, and that's the beauty of the virtual world. We're able to do a lot of it virtually. I'm not necessarily going out there, I shouldn't say, but we do have a head of retail who goes, and whether it's hiring in person or just making sure she's there to train the new team, I have regular touch points with these girls to make sure they are like just an extension of what would Adriana do, if you will, right? Yeah. What would we do as the founders of this brand, Bill and I, to create that community in real life. So yeah, we'll have those regular touch points. As far as the operations of it's definitely been a bigger lift for our planning team, which is all of like 3 people, to navigate, okay, if we're buying this amount, we have to buy this much for retail, buy this much for e-com, buy this much for wholesale, and make sure that we can still drive a crazy amount of hype around the product, not have it live for too long where it gets stale, sell through most of it, figure out a way to offload it if it doesn't move. All of that is still a nightmare. But I think that's the case for any brand that has as complicated of a SKU count as we do. But, you know, when it comes to just the general operations of the business, it's just another channel, right? So we just kind of, once you set it up, it kind of, if it works itself, right? But there are, I'm sure, plenty of brands who would try that avenue, setting it up, and it falls flat because they find the customer doesn't want it. And that's okay. You know, I don't think everyone is made for retail. I didn't think I was made for retail until we found out that we were, and we're still proving the model, frankly.
Right. So I kind of want to get a little bit more into the hiring, because 0 to 50 employees is incredible.
Yeah.
We're at 4 years. 4 years now. We're
really
10.
bad at hiring.
Yeah. Like, people say, oh, you guys are super lean, and it's like, yeah, it's impressive, but it's like, we're at
We're
our
not,
like
trying to be.
yeah, like, we're not, yeah.
You know,
How do you? I think the question I have is like, at what point do you identify, okay, there's a need for somebody, and how do you actually go about like making sure you're fulfilling that role and making sure that they can actually be successful for you?
I mean, you're asking the $1 million question that, like, I don't have the answers for either, though, you know? And I think
0 to 50, I feel like you know what you're doing.
There's been, yes, and I will give us that. We have not had a ton of turnover at this company over the past decade, which is exciting. You know, I think I've let go of 10 total people in 10 years, which is crazy. We've had some people leave on their own volition. Yeah. It's really freaking, no, but I say that because I kind of need to get better at it, frankly.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, because we're all about kindness and we're all about compassion and familial energy and sisterhood and all that stuff, it's very hard for me to like look someone in the eyes that has taken me, 5 years and they gave me their all and what have you, but I know they're not going to get me the next 5 years and have to say, hey, it's time to go. Yeah. That's really fucking hard for me to do.
100%.
And it gives me the chills because it's like, it kills me inside. And that's kind of, we're constantly going through that. My biggest problems are people problems across the business. And it's because you can't know. There's no glass ball glass ball, is that what it's called? 8 ball?
Crystal ball.
Crystal ball, yeah. I'm like, is it glass or crystal? There's no crystal ball that tells me that this person's gonna work out or not, because everyone's selling themselves, right? And you're just you are so strapped that you gotta hire someone now because the time has come. We've also been completely self-funded up until last year. Completely self-funded. Yeah. And it has been beautiful and it's been profitable and self-sustaining, but it's because we were so lean. Yeah. And yes, partially because we wanted to be and partially because we couldn't find anyone that would fit the bill and fit the mold, if you will. So, I think the answer is to the first question, how do you know when it's time? It's when you feel like you feel, which is like, I don't have there are no more hours. I have no more hands. I cannot do this. And everyone feels that way, right? Bring someone on. And ideally, you wouldn't let it get that far. You would preempt it.
Of course.
And that's something I struggled with. But then, how do you know that they're going to be the right fit, or, whether or not it's like, do you hire an expert or do you train someone? That's one of the high level questions we were thinking about talking about today. And I think that has to do with where you're at in your life cycle as a company. Like earlier on, I would hire anybody with opposable thumbs. Like, if you have the ability to help,
you got to be scrappy.
Come here and help, because I can't afford an expert right now. Or I would outsource and see if, I'd say, hey, and I did. Social media was outsourced in the beginning, customer service, anything that I could outsource, I did. Of course. Once we started getting bigger, then I was able to really hire actual not actual talent, because again, those early people got me here, and some of them are still with me to this day. Wow. Mariah, who I consider to be like not my right hand, but like the main face of the brand outside of me.
Shout out Mariah.
Yeah, shout out to Mariah. She started beading bracelets in a warehouse in Hoboken with me. She was making the product with me. To now she's my head of partnerships and brand experience. And we laugh because I change that title every other day. I just say head of partnerships, but she's also really primarily head of brand experience. But this is what it is, you're just fucking figuring it out. Yeah. Like, none of us just became corporate companies. Like, we all figured it out along the way. So there are people that'll get you there. There are people that won't. The difficulty is knowing who that is and being able to sit them down and have that real conversation. And it's something I very much so struggle with. But as far as finding talent, I think one of the things we've leaned in is some tools. One of the things that we use is this thing called Culture Index, and it essentially is a personality survey where we send to all potential new hires, and we can make real decisions on whether or not that person is a culture fit, whether or not they're gonna like or fill that role well, and whether or not our expectations of that role matches what they're able to give us based on their own self-assessment of themselves.
This is just their personality.
It asks you to select a certain amount of words that describes you in both your life and then also in the role that you think you're about to take on, if that makes sense. And it shows whether or not there's like a connection there.
It's a very holistic.
Yeah, like it's just, I honestly don't know the science behind it, but I know that it's so freaking accurate that it's made it a lot easier for us to hire. And I think whether it's that, which is, you kind of have to invest in that, but it's either that or some other parameters that you can set up that define success in the role for you and then can get some real answers of who this person is that you're trying to hire. I think that's really the ticket that I wish I had done a little sooner, honestly.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
I feel like we should be doing that.
It's amazing.
We should be doing anything that we're not doing.
Well, that's how it always is, right?
And stop doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Throw the whole thing out.
Are you like hire fast, fire faster type of like mentality?
I was.
Like, do you not want to get so attached where you can't?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, okay.
If hire slow, fire fast is our new method. Yeah. And it took a long time to offload some people that we knew just weren't the right fit, but we loved them and we cared about them. And, I'm sad that they're not here, but I also know that like at some point you have to call a spade, and the person's either not the right fit or they are. And you kind of know who it is, right? Like you know who you need to walk away from, but it's the hardest thing to do. For that reason. But yeah, we like to, now it's hire slow, fire fast. If we find out they're not the right fit, they gotta go. And, it's caused some issues with the remainder of the team, and we're still trying to find our footing as to like, how do we navigate being a compassionate, kind, open employer, but still value very much so like working in office, right? And not having people be on this team if they don't fit and they don't they're not performing. Like you kind of
Are you guys mostly in office?
We are. We're 4 days a week.
We love that.
I love that. And I personally, it's also been like, we're right in the thick of it, you guys. Like literally we just did a employee pulse check survey. And we've got a small cohort of people on our team that do not like the way we do it, which is in office, 4 days a week. Hours are 10 to 6. None of this like start at 8, leave at 4, energy, or start at 10, leave at 6. Like we really try to be kind of in the middle of the day for all of us. And I've been pretty like steadfast with that over the years. And even through COVID, like we didn't change everything simply because, the world had to pause. Like that's not realistic. I know granted a lot of companies have, but they're huge. I mean, I'm not IBM.
Yeah,
So,
no,
like,
it makes sense.
We have to do what we have to do. And in person breeds, in my opinion, more creativity, more real-time efficiency. It's not waiting for someone to get, pick up the phone. Like it's a very collaborative environment. And, I might lose some talent by putting my foot down here, which I'm literally going to put my foot down on this week because we were like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? The decision is there is no help coming. This is not going to get easier. It's going to be just as hard as it's been, if not harder, because we're in a high growth period. This is what we're doing. And we're, I think, making a difference in the world. And if you're not excited about that, that's okay. There is a place for you. It's just not here. And I think that's something that as founders and CEOs, we all have to get like okay with, because it can be really hard. You don't want to be disliked, especially a young bullied woman. I don't want to be fucking disliked by everyone on my team, but you're going to hate me within my 4 walls or you're going to hate me outside of them. So I'd rather you hate me from afar.
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, you don't really build an actual culture without being in office. I think it's so important because, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who like to, do the remote thing and they give you all the benefits of working remote and I can do it, this and that. But if you think about like, we've kind of tried it before and employees, it just doesn't work. And people who say they can do it, most of the time you can't.
Yeah. I know plenty of companies who, other D2C brands that started remote and are now trying to go in office, right? Or went remote after COVID and are now trying to come back.
That's probably hard.
It's impossible because you're going to lose a lot of talent, and then also you're not going to be able to, you're going to piss off a lot of people and that work for you, and then you have to navigate that. And look, I might piss off a lot of people that work for me now, but I know that at the core of the core of my team who really is going to take this the distance, they understand the assignment, right? Like they're not confused about what's happening here. And what's happening is we're building a business. It's really fucking hard to do. It's a $25 price point. It is so much more complicated than it should be for the price that it is, right?
Right.
So we don't have that beautiful AOV that can kind of buoy us through the rest of time. No, every decision is a big decision, and we need good decision makers on the team to get us there. But it's hard. You just kind of got to do it. And I think actually being lean is pretty amazing, honestly.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard. But I'd say stay lean and hire slow and fire fast until you feel like you've got that core group, and then stop.
That's
like
good
if my
advice.
husband had his way, he would not hire anyone ever again. We're done. Our employee compensation line on our P&L is like way big, you know? And that's
And
great.
We've been told ours is too small.
Listen, that's a beautiful problem to have.
Yeah.
Because all you got to do is find the talent.
Yeah.
You just got to take your time to make sure it's the right talent, because people problems are the worst of them all.
They really are.
Especially when you care.
Yeah. I want to switch gears, talk a little bit more about some of the marketing stuff that you guys have done.
Yeah.
You guys have done some really cool licensing deals.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about
Yeah.
what you guys have done?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if licensing is for every single brand, but why was it, an option for you guys?
So for us, I mean, we're kind of a one-trick pony right now. We do have line of sight to some really incredible new products that we're launching that is going to kind of up the ante, hopefully drive up that AOV that I keep talking about. But as a product, we're a beaded bracelet, right? So it really lends itself to this licensing energy of working with brands that already have an established footing on an established customer base that we can kind of just like attach ourselves to them, siphon some of their brand ethos, if you will, and create a product that synergistically lives between both brands. And so that's kind of where like our Barbie collaboration came about. A lot of these collaborations are licensing, right? So there are minimum guarantees, that you got to pay out. There are a lot of stipulations around like the legality of it all. You have to be really intentional about the design. The approval process is grueling, and you got to make sure that you're marketing it just right to sell it out. But you have a minimum guarantee, and our product isn't that expensive. So the margin that we have to give to these licensors, if you will, it becomes very complicated. So we try to be really intentional about who we work with, and is it going to be brand accretive? And so yes, working with Barbie ahead of the movie, which we feel really good about, like the timing we did it there. We actually did it last year, so we kind of almost feel like we were out in front.
Dude, remember they asked?
Yeah, they did.
You could have done it.
Yeah.
Dang. Well, listen, some people think we were way too early and missed the boat. I think we
No,
were great. It was out in front. We got to actually move through product. Barbie let us do a discount on our product when everyone else was selling full price.
Yeah.
We were able to have our sale price on product to move through the remaining Barbie inventory during the hype. But yeah, it's like I said, it's thinking through which of these licensors are going to be brand accretive. How can we very seamlessly create product around that? Like we just did a Clueless collab, for example, and it's teed up to be a perfect product launch, right?
Yeah.
It's it's a millennial base, which a lot of our customer base is millennial, though we do have it's millennial and Gen Z, so we have like a nice skew there. Millennial base, it's got all the words that you can use. Like we literally put Clueless on a bracelet. Like it's just very simple when the product is so simply manufactured, if that makes sense, because we can just kind of be nimble and flexible.
And these licensors, probably not a lot of diligence because your product is such low risk.
Right, like it's low risk. The one place that we need to get better and that I really want to navigate with these licensors and kind of get them over the hump is we have a big custom customer, right? So our last month alone, 51% of the business online was a custom product. So the customer's coming on, she's picking her color, she's picking her word, making her any word she wants. She's putting her son's name on it, right? And getting that product in the mail, and then she goes on and has her own custom bracelet that she created. That's 51% of e-com.
Yeah.
What we can't do and what we haven't navigated is the ability to get our licensors to allow us to put like their logo or their little emblems on custom product because they can't control what word that person's putting on there. So we're navigating that, but yes, so when the product is finished, it's literally like they approve the word, colorway, and style, and we move on.
So you just have a blueprint for licensing, pretty much.
Pretty much. It's like, how can we get like little charms that are the logos? We're actually launching college and sorority licensing this week.
Wow.
So that's going to be cool.
That's
We've
huge.
gotten a couple of major schools,
huge.
all sorority names. So we're very excited about that. And just, again, it's how do we tap into these communities that exist already and provide them with something that is going to be value add to their life? Because at the end of the day, whether you wear a bracelet that says dream on it with your school's logo, or you wear a bracelet that says dream on it without your school's logo, you're still being told to dream. Like it's still the same core message. And I think that's what makes our product so successful in the licensing sphere.
Absolutely.